From the land of conjurers flying through the internet to your device like a UAP, hauntingly unexplained and downright weird, this is the witching hours, and we are ready to take off in the flash of an eye. Good evening to one and all. Whenever or wherever you're listening to this program, I am Giant of the Frost, and joining me, as always, is the medium Jenny Lee. Medium Jenny Lee, want to get weird?
Of course. Hey, it's our Twitch affiliate anniversary. We didn't even know.
Yeah, I saw.
Happy anniversary.
Surprise! Surprise! Happy affiliate anniversary.
Affiliate anniversary.
It's easy to lose track of those things because we have our stream anniversary, which is in October.
It took us a long time to get affiliate because we didn't stream but once every 2
once a
weeks
month.
or something, or once a month.
Start off once a month.
Yeah. So yeah.
And then we didn't even start off on our own witching hours channel.
No, we were doing it online. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a different weird anniversary.
Yeah, we did some shows on Medium Jenny Lee, and then we made a new channel for it. And then at first we were just doing once a month, and then we went to
twice a month.
And then now we do it every week.
Yep.
So yeah. So thank you everyone for all the well wishes from all that. It's exciting. Yeah. All the different milestones we hit are exciting. So another affiliate anniversary. Thanks everyone. Thanks for coming in and hanging out with us tonight. We got a great show. I'm looking forward to tonight. I think a lot of people are, and specifically, I know one person is because, well, Luce is the one who recommended.
Yes, Luce wanted Barbara to come on, and Luce said, "I'll be crocheting my dragon while we're talking about dragons."
Yeah, so we always are welcome. Look, we talk about all the things supernatural, paranormal, and unexplained. So if there's someone that you've caught that you're interested in that you would like for me and Jenny to talk to, always feel free to give those recommendations, because
we always ask. Whether they agree to it or not is a different story. But yeah. Barbara was kind enough to accept our invitation. So
we're looking forward to that tonight. I guess updates, anything going on. I'm trying to think. I don't think we got a whole lot of news to pass along right now. We're still I'm still waiting to get tickets on sale for the Team Weird Takeover, but that is getting closer and closer. So we'll have that more information for that coming to you guys soon, I promise.
Yep.
We are going to be we don't got that much longer. What do we have, like another week or so, and we're going to be at the Hanover Tavern Paracon.
Yes, it's coming up very soon.
February 1st. So is that, I guess that's next weekend. Not this weekend, but next weekend. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it is.
Yeah, it's coming up really quick. So we'll be at the Hanover Tavern Paracon. So if anyone's in the neighborhood and wants to come say hi, you're more than welcome to. And there'll be lots of guests who have been on the show. Sam Baltrusis is going to be there. Haunted RVA Paranormal was there last time. I don't know if they'll be there this time or not.
Haunted Richmond will probably be there.
Haunted Richmond is definitely going to be there because they're one of the speakers.
Probably going to be there.
I would imagine Alex Matsuo might be there again. So
Pamela K. Kenny was there last year. Yeah. So a lot of our guests, a lot of our guests are there, and hopefully
we haven't had
new people to be guests too.
Yeah, we'll be going around looking for some more fun people to talk to. I think Patty Negri is usually there too. I don't know if she'll be there this year, but we haven't talked to her yet either. So maybe we can swing by and talk to Patty a little bit.
So what's the news this week?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get into the news. Well, as I saw when I logged in today, the stream anniversary is today, so that's some of the news we have going on tonight. And of course, we had a historic winter storm. I don't really have this as a news article, but just wanted to mention, we had all that snow down there in the Gulf and the deep South, all the way up the East Coast, and places where they're not really used to snow. I saw lots of beaches in Florida with snow and palm trees covered in snow.
New Orleans snowball fights.
I think our friend Priestess of Wonderland had a little snow down there where, they've been avoiding some snow. We got a little bit. We got enough to knock us out of school for a day. So, but it's important to remember that some of these states are seeing the coldest January they have seen in decades.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a problem for us folks in the South, and especially our friends down there in the deep South, getting some weather that's been unexpected, but winter is here.
Yeah.
First story.
Today is the Wanderer's birthday, and of course, you
Yeah.
guys know that he's down in South Carolina. He said their county has 1 truck and no salt. So that's how the South is handling the snow right now.
Well, yeah, Charleston, South Carolina usually getting hit on a lot of snow, but there
Okay,
we
first
go.
story.
First story: mystery balls on Sydney beaches found to contain fecal bacteria. We
Oh,
talked about
do we
these
have this
black
story
blobs.
already?
Well, this is an
It's
update.
new? There's new poop
Yeah,
balls? Oh
the
my god.
mysterious balls that forced the closure of several beaches in Sydney last week were found to contain saturated fatty acids. Um, so Sydney's Northern Beaches Council said it has sent the debris to the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority for further analysis. 9 beaches, including popular spots in Manly and DY, were closed on the 14th of January after the marble-sized balls started washing up. It comes months after thousands of black blobs started appearing on the city's coast in October,
Wow.
prompting authorities to close some of its most famous beaches for
Yeah.
several days and order a
I
massive
thought
cleanup.
we had talked about the poop balls already. There's
Yeah,
more.
well, I think that some of that was happening in Britain. They were
Oh,
having all
yeah.
the yeah.
Oh. Now they're showing up in
Mhm.
Australia. What is happening?
The latest batch of balls was cleaned up from
Oh,
harbor beaches this week, the Northern Beaches Council said on a statement on Tuesday, and it urged anyone to not handle them and to avoid contact and to contact authorities. Besides the acids and bacteria, they also contain volcanic rock pumice.
weird.
Northern Beaches Mayor Sue Hines said she hopes the EPA analysis will identify the source so they can stop this from happening at other beaches.
What a weird concoction of things to be all
I know,
mixed
right?
together. Huh.
Scientists said they resembled fat, oil, and grease blobs, often called fatbergs, which are commonly formed in sewage systems. But
Oh,
Sydney Water has reported that its water treatment plants are operating normally and that there were no known issues with waste systems in the
mm.
city. So hopefully they clean that up and don't go play with the blobs on the beaches.
These must have
Everyone
come
in
from
Australia.
Richmond when the water stopped working. They got from
Yeah.
Richmond, Virginia to Sydney, Australia
Lot
so fast.
Lots of water issues over this
It's a
last
lot
year.
of yeah.
Lots of sewage issues, lots of water issues. But,
Mhm.
this really there's I wouldn't mind having someone on to talk about this at some point in time, and that's infrastructure.
Yep.
What would happen, how far away, how many things is it gonna take to break the system, so to speak? Like
It's
how
pretty crumbly right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because, I know kind of the American infrastructure.
Mhm.
I've been overseas a little bit, but not a lot. So it's like it'll be interesting to see, are there other countries that are kind of taking alarm
Having the
at this
same
and going back
problems.
through?
Yeah.
Is this something that kind of is a worldwide phenomenon? I don't know, but definitely issues. Story number 2: UVA's Division of Perceptual Studies launches major research initiative on children's past life memories.
Yay.
The Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia is pleased to announce that it has a groundbreaking $750,000 research program
Woo.
investigating cases of reincarnation. This 2-year initiative is going to be done by the BIAL Foundation, BIAL Foundation, the Dreamery Foundation, and the Philip B. Rothenberg Research Fund, led by the Division of Perceptual Studies. Researchers Dr. Marietta Pelavanova and Dr. Philip Cozzolino. This innovative program will employ state-of-the-art neuroimaging and contemporary research methodologies to explore why certain children report memories of past lives.
That's a big deal because there's so many scientific research projects that need funding that have to do
Mhm.
with the metaphysical and the weird and the spiritual and the woo woo, but no one will ever
Mhm.
give them money. So for them to get that much money,
Yeah.
I think could be a game changer for other people that are wanting to get funding for their studies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like what I read in here, the fact that they're going to be using like neuroimaging, like this
Yeah.
isn't, this is a university
Mhm.
that's, been doing studies on this. We've talked about a lot on this show. University of Virginia, I think, is kind of cutting edge on research that they do there. So that's great. The research team will be strengthened by the inaugural Rothenberg Research Fellow. And this fellow, so to kind of cut ahead on this, they said that this expanded research program marks a new chapter in our scientific investigation of children's past lives memories. By combining insights from our extensive case collection with modern neuroscientific methods, we aim to understand the cognitive, neurophysiological, and environmental factors that may contribute to these experiences. This research aims to bridge the gap between these compelling cases and mainstream science. The public presentation and dissemination of this work at conference and peer-reviewed scientific journals will contribute to our understanding of consciousness, memory, and the human experience. The program is going to launch this year, and it will run through 2027. So there we go.
Cool.
Looking forward to that. So keep my eyes out and ears out for any news on that. And if you happen to find some news on it, feel free to drop it in our Discord channel under our Weird News tab. And we have a little bit of breaking news that just came out today. President Donald Trump signs an executive order to release more JFK, RFK, and MLK assassination files.
Oh, wow. That'll all have Sharpie streaks through them.
Yeah. So President Trump announced that he'll declassify any remaining files from the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, his brother Robert F. Kennedy, and civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. He signed an executive order at the White House today. After an aide announced the president was signing the executive action ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, and so on and so forth. This is a promise that Trump had made on the campaign trail. If anyone's like me and watched his appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast, that was one of the things that they asked about. You know, the alien, if he was going to release any stuff with extraterrestrials, and if he was going to release any documents going to the assassination attempts of JFK and RFK, and of course, RFK Jr. Is also going to, was asking for that on his run. Mm-hmm. So the president instructed his aide to give the pen he used to sign the order to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So RFK Jr. has the pen that he signed the executive order with. So kind of looking through this, White House officials have not yet said which or how many JFK assassination files will be released. The National Archives made public a trove of over 13,000 documents related to his assassination in late 2022. Shortly after, then President Biden issued an executive order authorizing their disclosure, but his administration kept thousands of other sensitive records under wraps. And so the rest of those records should be put out by the government. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah. It's kind of like UFO disclosure. The way I look at that is, I don't know.
I agree with, go ahead.
If you came to me and said, hey, Frosty, we need you to release to the public all of your darkest secrets and, have it in there. I mean, how do you know? Like, if they say they released all the documents, how do we know they released all the documents?
Well, I agree with what CMC said. He said, unfortunately, we won't learn much with those records. They've already been scrub clean and incriminating info deleted.
Yeah, I agree with that. Any information...
Or we've seen their documents they've let out before, and it's like, 3/4 of the page is all marked out with black, and then there's like the word the a and
this is something that I've always been interested in.
Here's your documents.
I've always been kind of abnormally interested in. Even when I was young, I was really interested in the JFK assassination. That could definitely be a topic I'd be willing to have a guest on for the show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's someone we can look out for. If anybody knows someone to talk to about that, feel free to suggest that person as well. Yeah. All right. And that was the weird news.
All right.
Footballs,
Trump, and
JFK assassination files. Hey, if that's not weird, I don't, and UVA and their
past life stuff.
Past life regression. Yeah.
All right. Our guest tonight
Barbara Worsley, affectionately known as the East Coast Dragon Lady and Galactic Dragon Ambassador, is a retired registered nurse who has dedicated her life to spiritual exploration and dragon wisdom. With a career spanning over 30 years, Barbara has delved into various modalities, making her a channel to numerous dragons, dragon collectives, and ascended masters. As an Amazon International bestselling author and sought-after international speaker, Barbara has shared her insights and experiences with audiences worldwide. She co-hosted Dragon Thunder 2023 and served as the host for Galactic Dragon Thunder 2024 in the USA, showcasing her deep connection to the dragon realm and spiritual teachings. Barbara is a certified dragon empowerment Reiki practitioner at level 2 and a mind, body, spirit practitioner, blending her nursing background with holistic healing modalities. Her passion for dragons and spirituality has been a guiding force throughout her journey. Originally from England, Barbara relocated to the U.S. in the early 1990s and currently resides in the Northeast with her 2 sons. She describes herself as an ancient elder awakened to her ancient lineage and memories of the past and future lifetimes. Please welcome to the show, Barbara Worsley. How are you doing, Barbara?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you. That always sounds so wonderful when
I know we always forget about all our accomplishments until we see them in a list. They're like, oh wow, I've done a lot of stuff.
And I have to say that AI had some help in that.
Oh yeah. It's always a huge help.
It is, because you put down what you want, but thank you. Yes. And I think this awakening to my elder wisdom was pretty mind-blowing when I one day said, wait, I'm an elder? What does that mean? And I was working with a group of people, and then just all this information started to come in, and it's all connected with dragons, but it was like, wow. So that was, so I say now, because I've said this the other day, I've always been a talker, and in school I got into trouble because I was always talking. And then in job, they're always like, are you still talking? So now I embrace that and say I'm a storyteller and I have wisdom.
Yeah.
So I've changed that. And I say, if you ask me a question, you're going to get a story.
So that should shut up the complainers pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense, Barbara.
Right.
I had a grandfather who I loved dearly. He was a wonderful person, so I don't want to make him sound bad. But one time, when I was very, very little, he told me that I talked too much and that men weren't supposed to talk that much.
Right.
And now I host a podcast, so I guess.
and you find what it is, right? So I learned, rather than going, oh, I'm going to get it, I'm going to talk too much, and people are going to roll their eyes, right? So I start off by saying, this is who I am. Because, ask me a question, I've got a story. Because after we've lived for a while, right? And then I can remember some past life stuff. I'm like, raring to go. So that's probably why the dragons chose me as well, because they're like, here's somebody that can talk a lot.
There you go. Pass on information.
So before hold on, before we get away from that topic, because that was some of the questions that I had. So what exactly is an elder? How would you explain that?
So how would I explain elder? So good. Yeah. So I was looking through, because I write things down. What I started doing was I would get all these messages and I would write them down, or automatic writing was what I used to say. So I actually was looking at what have I written. Let me go back and find some of the stuff I'd written. An ancient elder dragon was my first group of dragons who spent time, wanted me to listen to their stories. So an elder, elders, so this is how it was explained to me, an ancient and an elder. I was like, what's the difference? So an elder is a very old dragon who has knowledge of many lifetimes and incarnations on Earth. And elders are very wise, knowledgeable. So it's having memory. So I was told that I have memories before Earth was actually here. And that was like, whoa, because we're connected to the stars and the galaxy. Oh, this is what I believe. Like, so we come from the stars and the galaxies, and they were like, so you were there before Earth was even born. And I've sort of seen I've actually sort of seen Earth, appear. So it's really bringing in the wisdom that you remember from lifetimes, is really what I embrace. And, you know, everybody will have a different version of that. And I always say that what I know about dragons is what they've told me, because there's not a lot of places you can look it up.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that comes up a lot for us with our collective community medium readings that I do, is that there's so many energies and spirits and beings out there that really want us to remember all of that, like not just why we're here for this life, but why, like all the knowledge that we do carry within our soul from all of our experiences, not just now. So
and that's really why why more people have started to wake up to, you know, seeing dragons, speaking to dragons, working with dragons. I mean, it's become almost like everybody, where you turn, there's people doing something dragon-ish, is what I say. Because that's what they, you know, and there's so many different types. I mean, we were talking before the show about accents. I mean, there are, you know, if you could take a group of people that connected to dragons, and they would all have different experiences, because they're different groups for different reasons. And for the longest time, I did not have a personal dragon, or I didn't think I did, because I was connecting to collectives. And I asked them, you know, why am I connected to you? And they explained to me that for a very long time, for many years, I had you know, in the morning, I would ground myself and make sure I was firmly, I'm also a Pisces, so I tend to be a little bit, I can go out there. And it was something I did. I was doing it as a practice, a bit like cleaning your teeth. And they said, because you've been doing that and you're grounded very deeply, you can go much higher. And collectives are more of a higher vibration. Because, you know, they usually come together for a reason. And I was like, that's the messages I was picking up was from collectives. So that was sort of, again, I was like amazed, because I'm not somebody that connected to dragons from my childhood, where I've met people that, you know, I was seeing dragons, I was playing with dragons. It was only the last 4 years. And I didn't understand why either. When they appeared, I was like, because I saw them in the sky. And I was out walking. I live, it's pretty high up here where I live. And I was out walking. It was in the summer. And I kept hearing, look up, look up. I mean, I was channeling ascended masters and Merlin. And I kept hearing, look up, look up. And I looked up, and there was at least 6. And they were lit, and I took pictures. And I can always, I mean, I had my phone with me, and I was just like, I need to take just to prove to myself when I get home that this is what I'm seeing. And when I got home, I could actually see there was at least 6 faces that I saw, and they were literally diving, you know, through the clouds. They were frolicking and huge. I mean, they were really, really big. And I didn't hear anything. I just saw them. And then I'm like, why am I seeing dragons? And I got nothing. And it sent me on I was like bugging everybody I knew. I'm like, do you know anybody that sees dragons? And they were like, no, I don't know anything about dragons, but try so-and-so. And it was just really weird, because people were going, why are you seeing dragons? And I'm like, I don't know. Why am I seeing dragons? And they just wanted me to do that, sort of connect with other people. And then I did find people that had connected with dragons, and they slowly started to then communicate with me.
That's pretty amazing that you saw them with your own with your eyes, you know, because as I'm sure you probably also have this happen to you. A lot of times when we see imagery psychically or mediumistically, we see it in our mind's eye.
Yes.
But like for you to actually see them with your eyes that's pretty amazing.
It was, and you know, and I've got pictures that I can show people and go, yeah, look, these are dragons, and they're like, yes, they're dragons. You know, and even they're probably the only ones that I've like seen. And then once I started communicating and having some conversations with them, I would get like glimpses. And a lot of people, you'll get a glimpse at the corner of your eye. You might be aware that they're there. They may tell you who they are, because a lot of people say, oh, I want to see my dragon. I want to know my dragon's name. So this is what they tell me. When people ask, what's my dragon's name? They say it's a very human thing.
Yep.
You want to name us.
Yes.
You really don't. And actually, we probably couldn't hear what their name is, you know.
No, yeah.
And they're like, and a lot of times dragons don't want to be named because that's attached to when they were captured. So there's a lot of dragons that were captured, you know, during different times, especially during Atlantis. And they were given names because they were captured. So a lot of dragons are just like, you can name, and I've got, my dragons tend to like, they're like boys and they like to tell like funny jokes. And they would just say, it's just so human of you to want to name us. And then they started giving me really old-fashioned English names. And they were like, you call me Ethel. Mabel.
Yeah.
Okay.
So before we get down the road with this further, because I think I have an idea where we can go with some of this tonight. I want to kind of get over like the basic idea of dragons.
Right.
This is something I know that it's been discussed a lot over on Medium Jenny Lee's stream, but on this show, we haven't discussed dragons before. And for all the people who are listening out there who may not be familiar with this concept, you know, for me, like I'm a huge fantasy fan, and I've read Tolkien, and I know about Smaug, and the dragons, and I know the historical kind of connection to dragons and the symbology of dragons. So when we're talking about dragons here, are we talking about the physical manifestation of dragons as we know them in fantasy, or is this something different?
That's a good question, because I think it's depending on who you talk to about. So I always say that my dragons are very heart-centered. They always tell, they're not fighting dragons. They don't go out and, you know, they're not out there fighting. There are dragons that do that, and I don't connect with those dragons. These are dragons that are coming in to help us. And they say they're very much like guardian angels, like the same vibration as you know, ascended masters, guardian angels. That's sort of what they've come here to do, is to help us. So in answer to that question, I see them as that they're real, but we're not ready for them to come.
Okay.
And I'm a channel. So sometimes they will talk and they're like, okay, you're doing okay, just keep going. But it's, I think it's depending. And there are people that say, I had my dragon, my dragons when I was younger, and they've grown up with me. They've always been there to protect me. And certainly when I am talking to them, they will say, and I just helped somebody the other day with guardian dragons, and they said, but we've been with her forever, every lifetime we've been with her. I do tend to hear that a lot now, that when they're with us, they've been with us through many lifetimes, and we've shifted from either being maybe a dragon, and also some people have been dragons themselves or have memories of being dragons. So I think it's really, and I can't say they tell us that we're not ready to see them. Somebody said, could you imagine? I mean, we have trouble with UFOs, and and they've suddenly a dragon appeared. Like, we've got to capture it. We've got to find out. So they're saying that we're not ready yet for us to start seeing dragons again, because you go back to other lifetimes and dragons were there. They were, they were intelligent. In one of the Atlantises, they were their oracle. So, they've had many different tasks.
So do you think that they are, because it seems to me that because they're this higher energy, that they're not really, they don't really have like a 3-dimensional physical body. But so if they're coming, if like, let's say we were ready and they wanted to come and show themselves, would they manifest themselves a three-dimensional physical body so we could see them? Is that what you think it is?
Some of them have been here. And so again, there's, many stories about Atlantis, but one that I heard, and certainly the dragons have talked to me about, was when Atlantis was crumbling second time, there was a lot of dragons decided to leave the planet before that happened. And they were actually, they were the oracles at the time, and the humans blamed the dragons for the demise.
Of course we would.
Of course. So a lot of them decided to go off planet, and that's where they've been. And so, during my time of like meeting different ones, and there are people that have actually go and find dragons that have disappeared because they're still hiding, because they're still not aware that it's safe. So every now and again, people will come across, dragons on other planets. So that's where they chose to go. And one conversation I had, they were telling me that they actually live inside the planet. They don't live on it. They live inside it. And they were like, we're all here. We're inside, not outside, because we can't live outside. So I think when the time's ready, they could manifest. I believe that. But it's a bit like, whatever you believe about extraterrestrials, are they going to show up as, like we think they are? Or so I think it will be the same sort of timeline, that when we're ready for that, we will start seeing a lot more disclosure.
Of all sorts of things.
I know.
Probably things we're not even aware of yet.
Yes.
So, you were talking about being able to channel dragons, and I wanted to clarify. Are you able to see dragons that are around other people?
Usually I will hear, not always see them, but I will certainly get messages, and it just has happened recently. So, and it's like life is interesting when the dragons around, because it's almost like, well, I wasn't doing that a while ago. Now I can actually. So there've been actually a couple of women that have been in domestic violence situations that somebody said, oh, is there anything you can do to help? And immediately 2 dragons appeared and said, we're going now, and we're going to go and protect her. And they flew off. And actually, they were 2 huge dragons. And then these fire dragons appeared. And I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, we're following. So these 2 fire dragons went to clear. They said they were going to clear up all the negative energy. Now, she was across the other side of the world. And she actually said it was the first night she had slept and felt safe.
Wow.
And that all I asked was like, is that, and they just went. And then today, actually, somebody else in a group I'm in is in similar situation. And I asked her, would you like a couple of dragons? And she said, that would be awesome. And she said the same. About half an hour later, she said, oh my goodness, I feel protected.
Wow.
So it's the energy that people feel.
You were and talking earlier, I guess we're talking about like people kind of having like dragons that are with them from the time that they're children and sometimes later. Do most people have dragons around them that they're not aware of?
I believe so. I think so they tell me they're a bit like, I often think about angels as well. Like they're sitting there going, okay, we're right here. You just have to ask us. And that's off when people ask me, how do I connect with my dragon? How do I do this? I'm like, they're right there. You just need to talk to them and they will respond. And they're like, really? It's no more difficult than that, because they're that anxious. I mean, they love the fact that they can connect with us humans and we can speak for them. That's what they get really excited about. And actually, I had this experience where this collective connected with me and they were so excited. And I hadn't realized how overwhelming the energy was until I got physically sick.
Oh, no.
And then they said, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I think we forget you're human, because they were so excited. They were just sending me all this information, and they said, we're going to back off.
Yeah.
And what was interesting was that I was so used to having that energy around that I almost felt like, what happened? I felt like I'd been cut off from like my oxygen.
Wow.
And they left me until I said, okay, I'm ready for you to come back. And they said, okay, just remind us you're human and let's pace this, because they were actually channeling me some information. But they realized that what they were doing, and that happens to a lot of people, they get physically ill. We get physically ill as a human because we've been overloaded sometimes with all that energy.
Yeah. There was something I was going to say and I lost it.
That's the way it goes,
it was about the angel, making a reference to the angels.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We have angels come through quite often, and like that's what they say all the time. They're like,
we're right there.
You just have to ask. Like all you have to do is ask. And so it's interesting that they kind of say the same thing.
Well, because I got interested in that a while back, and like, okay, archangels, dragons, and they're like, yes, we've got a very similar frequency. They're different but very similar. And dragons aren't just here for protection, they're here to help us heal. I know that you mentioned that I've done Dragon Empowerment Reiki. I actually became a Reiki master teacher because the dragons told me. It was because I've done other Reiki modalities and never became a Reiki master. And they said, oh, this is the one you need to be the Reiki master. That my dragon, this collective that I work with, that I call them very prescriptive. And they will like say, you need to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, no, you do, because that's the way it's going to work out.
Well, that's nice that they're very specific, because and it seems like in so many situations when there's energy readings of any type involved, for me, it seems that they're very general, or they're not trying to give us like specifics. So I'm glad that the dragons are just like, hey, do this.
And if you say, they were like, really, you want a discussion about it? But this is how prescriptive they are. Like last year, year before, this collective that I was very aware that they told me they were incoming dragons, and they were elders and ancients, and a lot of wisdom was coming in. And they said, we're going to be sending you information, and you need to do an oracle deck with this information. And I was like, oh, okay. And then once they had sort of arrived, and how they told me they were coming, they said, you will see us as rainbows in the clouds. Now, if you've seen those rainbows that appear, there's not a beginning and end, they just appear.
Yeah, it's just like a little piece of one. Yeah.
A little bit. They were that's us coming.
Oh,
that's
cool.
us coming. And so, and it blew me away, because they said once they were ready to start giving me messages, they became very prescriptive. They said, they gave me all the colors from the Crayola palette. And they were like, you need this color for the back of the card and this for the front. And then we want gold trim. We were like, and my friend that was doing the art to it, she was like, I don't know if because we were going to self-publish. She goes, I don't know. We had no problems with it, the publishing of it, because they said, oh, no, we can do that. But they were very prescriptive. And then they gave me groups of information. And then this is the other interesting thing they do with me. When they give me this sort of work to do, they want me to go through the process. So while they were giving me messages about divine feminine, they picked mother, grandmother, daughter, sister, and they had me have memories of my childhood and helped me heal a lot of the things that were in my lineage as well, that needed healing, so that I could understand why that particular card. So it was an interesting process, but it was funny how prescriptive they were. And I do think that they're like that. Often when I get messages, it's very like, do this, do this, do this. They even said to me one day, you need to get a thumb drive. And I'm like, you know about computers? And they were like, you need to get some thumb drives.
Well, that's the only spiritual type of energy I've heard that actually will just tell you exactly what you need.
You don't get a lot of fluff with dragons.
Yeah, there's a lot of fluff with everybody else.
They go, you don't fluff it. They tell you because, and it's telepathic. So, they're like very direct. But yes, they do sometimes have some jokes that they like to throw in. And
so I wanted to ask what is the difference between typical Reiki and dragon Reiki?
Right. So everybody always asks that. So I wasn't sure. And that was really what got me interested in it, because I'm like, wonder what that is. So again, I had to experience this myself. So I took the level 1, level 2, and then I took my Reiki master. And then I was doing a session on somebody, and in traditional Reiki, you clear energy and you go into the chakras, and the dragons were standing there. They're going, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm clearing this. And they were like, no, you can do that much faster. And I'm like, but I need to go. They were like, step aside. And they showed me, like, you just go like this, like this, like this, and it's done. And I'm like, okay. So they stepped back again and let me continue. And then I got to the aura, and they were like, what are you doing now? And I'm like, I'm clearing the aura. And they were like, no, look, this is like, it's lasered. And that's how they explained it to me. It's an intention. It's lasered. You don't have to do all of that. You just go. So it's really, the energy comes from the past into the future through your chakras, back in and out, and they're cleared and they're balanced and you're done. And I'm like, wow. That's like 30 minutes. And they're like, that's all they need. The person that I was actually doing this work on, I didn't know at the time, was a Reiki master. And when we sort of came back together, and she said, wow, what was that? That was so fast, but that was amazing. And I'm like, oh, the dragon stepped in. That was awesome, because she felt it as like really lasered, fast, done.
So it's just like a different technique.
It's a different technique, but for me, it was interesting that they stepped in.
Yeah.
Guided me. It was almost like they went, this is how you do it. And it just made me laugh that they literally were standing there, like, with hands on their hips going, what are you doing now?
Yeah, I can just see them looking at each other like, what is she doing? What is she doing?
It felt a bit like that. Yes. Yeah. So that's what I found is the difference. It's still, and even with, I did Reiki for many years, and, it's more hands-on. I find that it's, especially since COVID, of course, everything's become, you can do it. It's energy, it's intention. So you can do it with people, in another country.
Yeah.
It's the intention.
Yeah. Isn't that a wonderful thing that we realized because of COVID, that we can do all of this work remotely and we don't have to be in the same place? It's
right. And it's opened up, as I said, to, meeting people from Australia and Canada and England. And it's just the time difference you have to figure out.
Yeah, exactly. Are you sure you want to do it at 2:00 in the morning?
No. It's like, no, you've got to do it on Eastern Standard Time. Right?
He said that he learned about his dragons while taking the Dragon Reiki level 1 and 2.
Yes. Yeah. And that there's a connection. I've found that most people that connect with dragons have done Reiki. And I've met people that have only done Dragon Reiki.
Yeah.
And have met their dragons. So I've seen, having just, originally I was just meeting collectives. It's only just been recently that I've started having individual dragons do individual work with me. And they tell me as well, we've been with you forever. If you didn't need us. Right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, our human lives, we forget. Luce had a question and a comment. Historically, we've seen dragons breathe fire. Some of my dragons use fire for clearing and then almost an energetic shockwave for other things. Have you experienced that?
Yes, yes. So they always say they do breathe fire, but it doesn't burn. So especially fire dragons, you will see them clear the path. They will either, go ahead of you, clear the path. But if it touches you, it doesn't burn you. It's just to clear the negative energy. But traditionally, that's how we see. And if you think of especially in England and a lot of, where there are castles, they were used for protection. So they were, the gargoyles, the dragons, over churches, homes, everywhere. And even now in England, they're still there.
Yeah. How about the energetic shockwave? Is that something you've experienced?
Yeah, well, I think that's like I was saying, this, like when you do a clear, or when with like clearing chakras, it is a bit like that, because how I've experienced it, it's like this big whoosh of energy that comes from the past right the way up through your chakras, out the top of your head, into the future, and then comes back down again. And it is it could be a shockwave. Yeah. It's just this energy, very lasered energy. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And actually, they also, there was talking about that when, the third eye, I was also told that like we see unicorns as that is a horn. That's actually, they've shown me a unicorn dragon, because there is a few combinations of things. And it's the third eye. It's actually the energy coming out of the third eye.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I told you that they make so much sense.
Yeah.
They're just really woke horses, everybody. That's what unicorns are.
Yes, they are. Yeah, exactly.
So it seems like there can be pretty drastic differences between dragons. What kind of dragons have you experienced in terms of like, well, I guess two parts, can you kind of talk about different kinds of dragons you've experienced and how they're different from one another? And is there an association with their differences in their color, or is that just for looks?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of different colors. So the earth dragons are, earth colors. So, and they're very, from the earth, they're greens and browns and that sort of stuff. I always see fire dragons as red. And you've got the, all the elementals. There are galactic dragons, which is how I got my galactic ambassador, because I was working with dragons that were actually out in the galaxies. And they were like, oh, you're our dragon ambassador. And there's, I mean, again, if you look, I mean, over the few years, I've got oracle decks for people that have done them. So people like, they've actually got pictures of dragons in different colors and what they do. But recently I've been meeting, like I said, a unicorn dragon. I've seen an owl dragon. And there was a and this Icelandic dragons recently came to me. And that was really interesting, because I was doing a class with somebody. Actually, she was in England, but there was two women from Iceland in this class, and we were doing breath work. And while we were doing the breath work, I suddenly got icy cold. I mean, bone chilling, like, and it was late. It wasn't even winter here, but it was, I literally bone chilling cold. My feet went like icy cold. And then these huge dragons appeared and they said, we're from Iceland. They were like working with my energy. And I'm like, I am free. And, I was cold for about 2 weeks after they had sort of interacted with me. But again, they wanted, their reason for connecting with me was they were like, we've been under the ice for many, many lifetimes. And as the ice is melting, we're being able to come out. And they were saying that some of them haven't flown on Earth. They've actually flown out in the galactic realm. But as they're now, they showed me that the ice is melting. So their caves and where they've been living are becoming exposed. and they talk about being dancing in the auroras, the aurora borealis, and they were saying some of you will see us in there. But that fascinated me, that once they connected with me, how cold I was. And actually today, when I was again reading, and I've just got that cold again, so I know they're here, right? It's just like, okay, we've shown up now, but you're really cold.
Yeah,
that's so interesting you said that about the aurora borealis, because CMC was on a trip in Alaska taking pictures of the aurora borealis, and very clearly is like this dragon head in the aurora.
Yes.
So yeah.
And actually, just the other, so what's again brought this up, somebody also sent me a picture of when we had this cold front coming to the United States. There was this picture that looked like a dragon coming over the United States.
Oh wow.
This cold front, and it was dragon shaped. And she said, "What did you get out of that?" And I went, "Oh, that's the ice dragons." And she's like, "Yes, that's what I thought." They were like, "Here we come." They brought that nice cold front in.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks
I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I went to a breathwork class. I didn't know I was gonna, there was nothing dragon related, and two women were there, and they were like, so they say there's more stories are going to. We're going to hear more about Iceland and dragons because they're appearing. More people have seen. And actually, I did look up some history of Iceland, that people do say they see dragons there. And people go there and often connect with dragons.
Iceland is kind of the central hub for all kinds of all kinds of things, mythological beings,
fairies and whatnot.
The elves and all kinds of stuff there. It's kind of interesting that you brought that up today too, because I had a news story that I left out of the news today, because I shouldn't have. I should have trusted my intuition. And that was that astrophotographer captured a great dragon in the Pelican Nebula. And so it's a picture of a nebula, and it's got the head of a dragon in there. And so what I did is
should have been one of the stories today. What were you thinking?
Well, I can bring it up real quick just to show the picture, but I did put it in Discord.
But I also think that's what they mean why we're going to see more of them. We're not going to physically see them, but we're going to see these images of dragons. And they were like, yep, that's us.
It's like the signs and synchronicities to let us know they're there.
Yes. Yeah.
So there we go. There's the the head of the dragon there.
Wow.
Wow, that's beautiful.
That is, yeah.
And I just thought it was interesting because I was like, oh, I have to put this news story in today because of our guest. But when I was reading the story, I was like, well, you see all kinds of stuff in nebula, and there wasn't much of a story to it. It was just a photograph.
Right.
So that's why I left it out. But I posted it up on Discord because, well, now it just seemed like it was a synchronicity there.
Exactly.
I needed to show
That's what we just said. Synchronicity.
So I wanted to make sure I put that in there because you just said that, we're going to start seeing more dragons. And that was one of the main stories, one of the first stories I stumbled across when I was coming up with the weird news for today.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well because, once people know that, and I'd say I would never have thought that I was going to, even channel dragons, like talk to them. It took many years for me to realize that I was a channel because I used to say I did automatic writing. And I learned while I was doing automatic writing, sometimes I would just be curious, like, oh, I wonder who this is. Then they would give me a name and I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. Or that's who I thought it was. My favorite was, so Merlin has been around me for many years, a good 30 years. And this is another. So somebody asked me this question the other day when I was talking about him. I actually saw him again, like I saw the dragons. It wasn't in my mind's eye. And I was in the woods near where I lived and was walking my dogs. And he just appeared. And I didn't even think, why am I seeing this wizard? And he appeared like I imagined him, you know, pointed hat, long beard, staff. And I had just got divorced. And I was saying to myself, wow, I don't remember fall being so beautiful. I mean, it's in New England. You know, it was so that the colors were so vivid. And I'm like, wow, why have I not seen them before? And this voice said, because you weren't ready to see them. And I was like, oh, wow. And it was Merlin. And I never said, why am I seeing this man in the woods? But every time I would go to the woods, there would be Merlin and he'd have something wise to say to me. And then after a few years,
first of all, I love that you just have like these weird things that you're just seeing and you're not freaking out about them. You're just like, why is that guy there?
So somebody said to me, wait, so you actually saw him? And I said, yes. And they were like, so you didn't see him in your mind's eye? And I'm like, no, I just saw him. But I didn't question him because he seemed familiar to me.
Oh, yeah.
What I've learned since. So then, you know, years went, I always say life happened, right? I was divorced. I had teenage boys. You know, I just had to get on with life. And it wasn't until Merlin reappeared in my life that he started to tell me about, you know, that we've been together over many, many lifetimes, that I've been his scribe. He's been my scribe. He loves to be Merlin the dragon. He's said, you know, you were my dragon keeper. I was your dragon keeper. When I was doing my automatic writing one day, I was like, oh, who's this? And she said, I'm Gwendolyn. I'm Merlin's wife. And I went, oh, Merlin's got a wife. And I Googled it just for fun. I'm like, did Merlin have a wife? And sure enough, what came up was Gwendolyn, the way she gave it to me, which is the Welsh way of writing Gwendolyn. And I was like, whoa. And he was like, yeah, I've got a wife. But it was like, that was my confirmation, right? The messages I was getting was actually, I'm like, oh, that was. Oh,
you had a validation.
Yes.
Something that you didn't know was validated. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that continues. But he has been my connector. This is why I'm bringing him up, because he says, he's very old English. He says that he is a connector and he has been my connector. So he helps me connect with all these people that I've been talking to, you know, archangels, angels, dragons. He's like, I was there. I was connecting you. And he says, that's my role here is I connect people. I connect people to dragons. I connect. So, yeah, I find he's funny. He's funny as well. He likes to show up.
Well, I do want to say, Jimmy, you're very surprised, but didn't we have a car trip where Michael revealed himself to you, and I don't remember us crashing or anything. So
I wasn't driving; you were driving.
I was. Well, exactly. I know. That's what I'm saying. And it wasn't.
But I didn't see him with my eyes. It's not like I saw that Archangel Michael standing on the side of the highway. I saw him in my mind's eye. That's a little different. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess maybe. Yeah. I think it's very interesting though, and I just hearing both of you talk, it seems like there's a lot of similarities, like you said, Barbara, between kind of what people talk about, what I've discussed with people and angels, and the dragons that we're discussing tonight.
Yeah, and again, you know, you could talk to somebody else that would be like, look, you know, I've got these dragons. We have to go out and fight battles, and we have to do that. That's not something that I was drawn to. They tell me, yeah, there are other dragons. And I've met people that, you know, and it's a bit like oil and water. It's like, I don't understand that whole go out and fight. But that's what dragons did, you know, back in history, right? They were there in battles. They were burning people with that. And, you know, even, you know, some of the movies and things. But, you know, dragons really want to be known as, you know, and they range in size as well. I mean, I've seen, you know, really small dragons, and then I've seen one of my dragons is like bigger than a mountain. I mean, he's huge, just huge, vast, you know, wings. But they're all very heart-centered and very gentle. They don't intend any harm to anybody.
So I wanted to go back to Merlin.
Yes.
So, we have the literary version of Merlin, but then I know a lot of people that interact with that energy of Merlin or of Avalon tend to feel or think that perhaps it's not necessarily something that happened in our timeline or uh, our dimension even, but that it's like that it's in some other realm that perhaps is sort of like Earth, but not. How do you feel about that? Since he's your buddy, have you ever asked him about that?
Yeah, well, so he's actually said to me now, well, it's magic.
Yeah.
He's going, it's magical.
Well, duh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, if I think so, I see that we run parallel lives. I mean, I didn't really think, but I hear so often from the dragons, from Merlin, that we choose to live in a particular life, but we're running these parallel lives.
Yeah.
Do we shift into those more things? But that's what he's showing me, is it's magical. He's showing me like opening a door and just walking the other side of the door. And that's a different, that could be, he's showing me like woodland, almost like magic, like we would imagine going through that little door. And then there's, another door. So he's showing me them as doors, but they're like our parallel lifetimes. Okay. And some of it's we have to go into because we need to heal ourselves in those lifetimes. I mean, they were the messages I got about, like you mentioned earlier, about soul level. A lot of times these things come up for us because we've got to heal those lifetimes that we may be living in. So that's sort of how it feels with me. And that's how he's describing it to me, that it's a magical thing.
Yeah.
And you're right. There are a lot of people that think of Avalon and Arthur and all of those sort of stories, which Merlin's here going, they're all true. There's nothing that isn't true, but it's what you believe in.
Okay. Because I think that I have even seen that space through a reading I was doing for someone, but it seemed like it wasn't quite here, like it wasn't like our Earth, but it was this other place. It was like just like it, but it was like Merlin was saying, it was more magical.
Yeah.
Like an alternate timeline almost.
Yeah.
An alternate. Yeah. It's literally, he's shown me this like little door and he's like, you just walk in and you're in that next timeline, but it's a magical. Yeah.
Because I've always felt like, I've always believed that there was some kind of, it's always resonated with me that there was some kind of truth when it came to all, like Arthur and the Arthurian times.
Yeah.
But, also being someone who's a historian, like there's just, it comes to, in our timeline, there's just not room for it. Like it's not there. But so that would be a good explanation on, maybe it was something that kind of bled over into, an alternative reality there.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if people are having these parallel lives in that space too.
Yeah.
It's like, it's no wonder it's part of our consciousness.
Right. And memories. I mean, I think sometimes we get those little glimpses. Like I remember I was taking a class, somebody was doing a class in Dragons of Atlantis, and I got to see a completely different Atlantis than I was, like in my mind's eye, I'd seen Atlantis, and I was taken to this completely different Atlantis, and I was actually a dragon at the top of the mountain roaring, and I'm like, oh, this is really fun. And other people were asking, well, could we have been dragons? And they're like, of course you could have been a dragon. And people are having those memories of being a dragon themselves. And again, that's how Merlin has sort of said to me, you were my scribe, I was your scribe. You were my dragon, I was your dragon. So he shows me all these different lifetimes that we've worked together. And a lot of people tell the same stories that are connected to Merlin. Very similar. So it's sort of like, get this like people going, oh, you connect with Merlin, so do I. And oh, he's been in and he tends to be in a lot of people's lifetimes.
Yeah. And that's always wonderful when you can get validation from somebody else.
Yeah.
You guys can validate each other's experiences.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. Well, I got somewhere I want to go with that, but CMC Air Boss did a good job of reminding me that we need to do a reset here, station ID, as he calls it. If you're just jumping in and you just joined us or you've come in since the beginning of the program, tonight we were with Barbara Worsley, and we were talking about dragons. So
and Merlin
about dragons and stuff. So if there's some things you want to talk about, if you've jumped in and you weren't quite sure where we're coming from, that's what we're talking about tonight. If you have questions, feel free to put them in chat, and we will make sure that we ask those questions to Barbara. We'll bring them up. It does help if you're in Twitch, you can highlight your message as well. So feel free to do that. If you are listening at another time, in another place, later on the podcast or over on YouTube, feel free to leave your comments down below. Any other questions? Has anybody know their dragon? Have other people seen dragons? If you're watching this video and you want to share your story, always feel free to put those below, and I'll always respond and talk to you about that. So feel free to ask your questions and have a conversation with us tonight. So
hold on. We also have Barbara's website and YouTube links are up at the top in Twitch and in the comments on YouTube. And they'll be down in the description box on all the other places if you're listening to this later.
Yeah, on YouTube and all those places will be down in the description down below. And I'll go over those just real quick. So make sure you check out eastcoastdragonlady.com and at East Coast Dragon Lady on YouTube.com. And so those are places, if you're listening, that you can go check out and you can find more stuff out about Barbara. All right.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to go to real quick is we talked about the different kinds of dragons, and I noticed you said some maybe tend to be like maybe a little bit more warlike. Are there good dragons and bad dragons, or are they all just kind of not just differing from each other?
I guess it's like I mean I tend not to go over to that side.
Yeah.
So, but I would say, yes, I guess it's like us, there's good and bad, and there's dragons that, and there are people that really feel that they need to go and do their fighting. And, that's what they need to do. They're going to go and fight for the universe or whatever that the fight is. I guess I haven't chosen to touch on that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, and there are dragons that, serve specific purposes. Like I said, often I think of fire dragons get called in to, like during the fire or the fires out, in California, a lot of fire dragons came in to fight fire with fire. Mm. And, the water dragons were there, and the earth dragons, because it was the earth's on fire, and this is they very much serve Mother Gaia as well, and it was like we're coming to help her, because it's like I've just got full body chills talking about that. It just, you could just feel that so many people wanted to help that the dragons were feeling it, because it was what they're connected to all the things that were dying and burning, that they needed to come and help.
Beautiful. Luce wanted to share an experience about being a dragon. So I'm glad you said that we could be dragons, because I did a meditation where I was letting all my anger and emotion out after a death in the family, where my dragons helped me morph into the dragon I feel inside my solar plexus.
Yes. Yeah. That's I think that's often, and I've certainly felt a lot of stuff in my solar plexus since I've been working with dragons, and I think they help us release a lot of that sort of stuff, the anger, the irritability, all of that stuff. They really help us with that. So yes, that's not, I mean, and I got direct when I needed to do that, going the top of the mountain and yelling, and to be a dragon to do it seemed even more fun.
Yeah.
And I think anything we experience, if it's real to us, it's real, right? I don't think there's, you can say, oh, no, I don't think so, because what we experience is true. And if it means we become a dragon so we can really let off that loud roar out, all the better. Yeah. But there's a lot of people that will say they remember being dragons. And you can also, I mean, I've been taken on the dragons as well to ride with them, which is fun because they like to show off as well.
That sounds fun too. Yeah. Is the Oracle deck that you said that you were talking about making, is that available for purchase?
It is, and actually, I self-published. So it's, again, this was what they. So the title is Ancient Intergalactic Guardians, Dragons of the Multiverse.
Sweet.
So that's and my friend was the. So I got the messages and sent her the messages, and she did the oracle. She did design the dragons,
images. Cool.
The images, yeah. So for $35, they're not expensive.
Awesome.
Yeah. So actually, if you go to my website, eastcoastdragonlady.com, you can either send me a message. Or I'm easy to find. I decided I'd streamline it all to East Coast Dragon Lady. So I'm also at eastcoastdragonlady@gmail.com.
Cool.
If you're in the United States, there's no charge for shipping. If it's outside, I'll negotiate that with you, because it's got really expensive to ship out of the United States.
It does. It is. It's ridiculous.
And it's also very confusing because, like, you'll think you have the pricing figured out, and then next thing you know, it's twice what you thought it was going to be.
Or like, 10 times as much as you thought.
Or more than, like, by the time. I mean, I've had people say, "Okay, well, what's that?" And I was like, "Well, it's $20." And then on top of that, like, "No, thank you."
Yeah, it's like you're having to pay the same amount for the product for the shipping. Yeah.
And then I've realized, then other countries, like there've been a couple of countries like Germany, that they have to pay import tax.
Yes. And like, that's ridiculous too.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I think in most European Union countries, there's a VAT tax. Which is very expensive.
Yeah. So again, the dragons had said to me, so negotiate. So I negotiated with you, like, we'll pay half and half. Because they said, we need to get this out, right?
Yeah.
So they were like, if people want it, send it to them. So, but it was fun doing with them as well, because, and people have said to me that they, they're easy to read. It's an oracle deck. They're easy to read, but what the dragons want you to do is to use your intuition as well. And that's what they did with me when they wanted me to do this oracle deck. They got me to use oracle decks, but not to read, what they were like, use the energy and so they got me to do that. So I understood, because they're really good at getting me to work it through, so I can then say, oh, so that's how. So somebody said the other day, so probably if we gave you a regular deck of cards and put dots and circles on it, you could read the energy from that. Like, I never thought of that, because now I like other people's oracle decks, but I tend to use them as, I don't know if you do that, but it's like I realize that I'm connecting with the energy, and it's whatever comes up from that.
Yeah, and it's always fun too, if you, like, this has happened to me before, where I'll be giving like 2 people readings back to back, but the same cards will come out, but it'll be a totally different message.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like that same card has 2 different messages from 2 different people.
Yes. Yeah. So
All right, CMC said.
Well, we do. Oh yeah, we do have.
You want to read it, Frosty?
Yeah, well, he's talking about for the wrap up. We'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll get that at the end there. But I was going to say we have quite a few people maybe in the chat room right now. I'm not going to call anybody out. We do have quite a few Oracle and Tarot deck collectors here who are probably itching.
Yes.
So
Priestess Wonderland is one. That's why she said, "Oh, she has an Oracle deck."
So so if you want to check it out, make sure you go to eastcoastdragonlady.com and check it out and get yourself a dragon Oracle deck. So there we go.
Yeah. Or if you also, you can just email me at eastcoastdragonlady@gmail.com and just put in the Oracle deck, and then I'll connect with you.
Awesome.
There you go. Excellent. So there you go.
Thank you. Yeah, because I've done 2. So so I'm, the dragons are going, we're ready to sell them again. About a year. But again, it's, as you probably know, it's not like if you don't, to get onto Amazon and things like that, seems always complicated to me. And everybody I've asked, they were like, oh, I get somebody else to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of different avenues and they're all not that fun.
Yeah, that's one thing about, well, I'm sure doing what you're doing as well, but it's like there's always things to learn, and there's so much that can be done by yourself now, but it's very much like learning as you go. I've learned about all kinds of stuff doing a podcast.
Yeah,
I've taught myself all kinds of things.
Yeah, but I agree. Yes, yeah, and I think especially with, and I'm not that tech savvy. My person that does my website will tell you that. She goes, I can teach you, and then after a while she was like, okay, just leave it alone.
Maybe not.
I'd be going, oh my god, what have I done now? No, I'll just send you it, right?
I know enough to get myself in a lot of trouble.
That's me, because then I think, oh, I know what I'm doing, and then she said to me, whatever you do, don't crash it. So she won't even let me near the website now. She's like, put it on for you. And I'm like, well, I told you, I also feel like I'm at that age where I don't want to learn all that.
Yeah.
Somebody can do it. I'm just going to let them do it.
Yeah. It's good to have a person for that, for sure.
It is. It is. Yeah.
So I wanted to share my dragon experiences with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have not experienced a dragon for myself, but it sounds like there's probably some out there I could connect with, because if they're just waiting for us to talk to them. But I've been able to connect to dragons through readings for other people in our community, and it was the same thing that happened for me that happened with the angels. It's like I didn't know if they were real or not until I saw one, until I was doing a reading, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's a dragon. So I've gotten to see, I think, 2 big dragons, and then I think I also saw Luce has some baby dragons.
Yes.
That we connected with.
Yeah.
So that's been my dragon experience so far. But talking to you makes me want to really dive into it a little bit more.
Well, so that's usually what happens once you start talking about they will show up. Like most people, like we have a conversation, they go, oh, so I have to tell you this story. So my brother lives in England, and he actually moved the last few years. He moved to what I call dragon country, to the southwest of England. But he thinks I might have, the British would say, a screw loose when I start talking about dragons. And he's like, so what have you been up to? And I'm like, oh, I've just done this oracle deck. And I can see him, he glazes over, and he's like, okay, whatever. Dragons, really? So literally after we'd had this conversation, they live in a village, and they're both retired, and they walk down to the village for coffee. And he said, so we go down to the village, and he goes, there's something going on. There's some unveiling. And he said, oh my God, they unveiled a dragon. I said, I really don't know what to say. And after that, everywhere he went, he would take pictures and send me. And he goes, so we went here today, and there are more dragons. And they're on a house. And I said, I told you. You said, maybe I might have to look into that history thing again.
Yeah.
So they will show up. And even if you don't have to believe. It's not like, people say, do I have to believe in them? No.
Yeah.
If they're there, they're there. And if they might nudge you. I mean, sometimes people say, oh, I have a feeling they're there. But and not everybody sees them. Some people say, oh, I really want to see my dragon, but isn't necessary. I mean, you know that. I mean, sometimes you're going to get messages, you don't see them.
Yeah. I love that story about your brother.
Yes.
Well, it kind of
now he's seeing dragons everywhere.
Yeah.
The first time somebody did, so my friend who does my website, she did a reading for me, and she's down in North Carolina, and she does the reading, and she always opens the front door and the back door, and while she's doing a reading, and suddenly she stopped and she said, oh my God, there is a huge dragon in my kitchen. She said, I've never seen a dragon before.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh yeah, that might be me. So that might happen to you now that you've because they really are anxious for us to connect with them.
Yeah. Well, in the story you were just sharing, I mean, a little bit of that reminded me of what happened earlier with the news article I didn't put in there tonight. But looking around, it's like, oh, we're gonna have Barbara on the show tonight, and I was just looking through my normal news feeds I kind of go through to pull stuff off, and sure enough, like one of the first ones right there was about the dragon. Yeah.
And then you didn't put it in. But we talked about
like I said earlier, it was just a photograph. So, but yeah. So it was, I was like, but yeah, it's definitely, like you said, if you talk about them, they tend to show up, which seems to kind of be that way with a few things that are kind of like in that spirit realm.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. If you talk about fairies or any unicorns, they show up.
Yeah. That's putting the thoughts out there, setting the intention.
Yeah. Which, was so the other thing, just talking about things showing up. So your clock that you have at the beginning of your show, I got chills when I saw it. I was doing a guided meditation with somebody 2 days ago, and we both saw this image of this huge clock.
Really?
Yes. And when I saw it, I'm like, that's the clock.
Whoa.
We saw it in this meditation, and we were talking about how it showed up. There was a group of people doing it. She was doing the guided meditation, and I saw what she saw, and we were describing this huge clock we saw it a bit more distorted, but I'm like, oh, that's what I saw, because I was coming on here, but I didn't, when I'd seen your podcast, I hadn't noticed the clock before.
Yeah.
So when you see that, and that happens to me a lot, I see something before it actually happens, and then I'm like, oh, that's what they were telling me.
That's pretty cool.
It is cool.
Well, you have me curious now, Barbara, because you said we were talking about if other things, if you talk about them, things will show up. Have you had other things show up?
Now I'm going to jinx myself. What's going to show up now? No, but I think when we talk about anything, we're giving it energy. And I think then we become more, I mean, I haven't necessarily seen like fairies, and because I haven't really got into that sort of thing. But I'm sure that if I went out looking, I'd probably or they're going to show up now. They'll be like, oh, you don't believe in us? Okay. So I just think it's like we put energy into it, and it makes us, maybe it clears our vision. Or maybe it's that door again that Merlin showed me. Like, go through that door and there's going to be some fairies, right?
Well, it seems like the dragons and the angels seem to be extra special. They like to be kind of magnificent and kind of show offy. But I think I'll take that, because from what I've heard about fairies, they can kind of be very, very particular to deal with. So,
right. And sometimes mischievous. Right?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll take the show offs.
Yes, I think they're like, we're here. Hello.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, Merlin tends to do that. He will like show up and be over my shoulder, like going, and say this now and tell them about this. Actually, somebody did send me I've got this picture of Merlin that I have up on my wall, and it's just how I saw him. And she sent it to me because did I do a reading for her? But anyway, she sent it to me, which I thought was nice.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
And of course, Merlin is in my Oracle deck because I couldn't not have Merlin.
Yeah, couldn't not have him. Yeah. So okay, Ascended Masters is Merlin considered an Ascended Master? Or is he like his own thing?
He's his own thing, but he's like, I could be.
So what are some of the Ascended Masters that you connected with?
Oh, I mean, sometimes even, again, names that I didn't know. And I'm trying to remember because dragons are like so in the forefront, but they did have me a while ago saying, sometimes the dragons match up with the Ascended Masters. So I'm just trying to think, and because it's getting to that time of day.
Yes. Well, let's do another question while you're thinking about it. Yeah. So for those who are listening who might not know what Ascended Master is,
that's a good idea.
Could you explain what that is?
Sure, and I always get this wrong. So.
Well, explain it in the way that you see it.
So Ascended Masters are, and it's somebody just also gave me the reverse of like, we are Descended Masters. So I've not heard this before, but somebody explained we are here because we are Descended Masters.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Ascended Masters have, and I'm like, oh, I like that to say Descended Master. And Ascended Masters of people, they've been here on Earth and have ascended and have taken on that role of what they've embodied is how I see Ascended Masters, a bit like Mother Teresa. Where it sort of seems to have affected everybody with her, like a lot of her sayings and things. And I'm just trying to think of, and it's going to come to me because I actually moved myself around today so that I had a background and I'm discombobulated. But I do think that their energies are very similar. Ascended Masters and dragons, and they do, like they were showing me, like oftentimes we connect other things to Ascended Masters, and they're like dragons have are connected with Ascended Masters and do the same sort of work. So I'm thinking of I'm trying to think who I think it's Shamuel.
Okay.
Shamuel and the dragon, that they do the same sort of work, and the dragons, they've got the different type of energy, but they do the work. So it'll come to me once I try to go to sleep tonight, of course.
Yeah. That's interesting that like there's these very different entities, but they all are very similar energetically, and they're trying to all kind of do the same thing. Like they really want to help us.
They do. And I think because we're human, we forget that we can just be so often what I'm told all the time is like we just need to be quiet. So the term they usually use is in the stillness, you will hear us. And a lot of, and I'm realizing this as well, we've always got to have something on, right? You've got to be listening to something, have music on, something. And they're like, if you just sit quietly, you'll hear us. And I think that goes for whether they're Ascended Masters, dragons, anybody. It's like just spend some time in quietness. And when it's not as cold as it is outside.
When those damn Icelandic dragons go back north.
That's right. Well, I'm not going outside with my shoes and socks off right now. But
no.
That's when we can connect with, all sorts of things as well.
Yeah. CMC wants to send you the picture of the dragon and the aurora over Alaska. So he's going to send that to you.
Yes.
I was at CMC. I was looking for it for you, but it's too far back. I can't find it. And then Luce said that they have also been being told that too about the descended master.
Yes.
They've heard that recently as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So is a descended master just an ascended master who's come back?
Yeah. Well, how it was put to me is like, we need to think of ourselves as descended masters, right? Because oftentimes we don't realize how powerful we are. And if we think of ourselves as a descended master, and that might be a new term we've started now, right?
Yeah. Now we're going to hear everybody say it.
Everybody's going to say it. It was in terms of, so I've just met somebody who does work in the quantum field, which just has blown me away. Because as I said the other day, if I'd, like I've talked about grounding, and, you know, a lot of times we need to be grounded to do this work, but to connect to the core of the earth and then be able to sort of see how that ripples out has just sort of blown me away in this like deep connection. And she talks a lot about that we're these descended masters, and we need to remember how powerful we are. And when you just see, so the quantum field is like one of these things I really don't understand, but I'm beginning to sort of feel it and understand it. So it's sort of that's exciting because it's sort of dragon related, but it isn't.
Quantum science things all are just kind of, to me, they seem to be validating all of the things that spiritual woo-woo people already knew.
Yes. Yeah. And this was the person that was doing this meditation that I saw exactly what she was seeing. And when we talked about it afterwards, you know, you could see people going, what are they talking about? Like, did you? And it was this color, and it was like, and she actually took, so that's a whole nother subject, but about remote viewing, like, which I think a lot of people have been doing remote viewing. There's certain people that remote view, but she was like, oh my goodness, you remote viewed what I was seeing out in the universe. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, remote viewing is interesting. We've talked quite a bit about remote viewing, and Medium Jenny Lee, we've done some remote viewing exercises and stuff. You know, I've kind of come to a thought that I don't think there's a whole lot that divide. I don't think there's a whole lot of division between a lot of these things like remote viewing and mediumship and channeling. And, you know, it's almost like a spectrum, I guess is the term that just came to mind. Like if you think of the rainbow or you think of a prism or a spectrum, it's just kind of all different shades of, you know, really like this one thing, it seems like. Would you guys kind of agree with that at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it just goes back to what Barbara was telling us of what the dragons were saying at the beginning about how it's humans having to put a name on something.
Having to put a name.
Like we have to categorize everything and have a name for everything, and like, but it's all part of the same thing.
Yeah, and I think remote viewing specifically kind of had a military connection, and I think, you know, they didn't want to say that they had mediums or channelers. So instead they had remote viewers, you know.
Yeah, well, it was also the Cold War as well, right, in this country.
Yeah.
You know, apparently we were remote viewing Russia.
Yeah, and they were remote viewing us.
Right, exactly. But there's been, you know, and as you say, you've done, and, you know, there have been, you know, people sort of say you can't, but there's certain exercises that they did. And then, of course, the government wanted to say it didn't actually happen, and you can't. But, you know, it was people was showing cards or, you know, or a number, and the remote viewer could tell them exactly what it was. Which I think, you know, if you channel, I see it as very similar. You just have to focus in on that one thing if you're going to remote view. I mean, I was... so one of the experiences I had just recently was, again, I found myself on a spacecraft, and I'm like, ooh. Yeah. And this has happened to me a few times. And I could see this window, and out of the window, I could see other craft. And they said, I was told that I was being escorted on a peace mission. And I realized I was on a very large ship with a lot of people. And they were like, yeah, you're going on a peace mission. And they told me I can remote view it. It was undisclosed. It sounded very top secret, undisclosed destination off planet. But there's a lot of people going on this peace mission. And they were like, you can remote view that because of where I am. So I'm like, oh. So sometimes I get taken to these places and I don't know quite what the significance is.
The spacecraft experiences, how were you experiencing that? Was it through meditation, channeling, dreams?
No, this was what was I doing? It was after a guided meditation.
Okay.
That and oftentimes what happens to me, somebody says we're going this way and they go, no, we're going to take you over here. We're just going to take you here. And sometimes, I mean, I've learned to be very patient because sometimes I get information and I don't know quite what it is. As I said, I saw this clock and then I saw the clock and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That's what it was. So it's sort of exciting. And then I've also been given a gift of sometimes I can channel a painting and I can paint something that I've seen. I mean, I've got some basic art skills, but there's been a few things that I have. One of them was an ancient doorway that I was taken through and I was able to draw it with all this different writing around it. And no way I would have been able to have done that. And I realized, oh, now I can channel paintings or things that I need to capture. I actually saw my ancestors in front of me one time and I was able to draw the back of them. And interestingly, they all had different hats on.
Maybe it was to help you identify who they are.
I think it was. And they all, and somebody pointed out that that's interesting. They've got different hats on.
Well, sounds like you need to start another Oracle deck.
Yeah, that's what somebody said. I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Or a little booklet or something with your drawings and like what it was about. Yeah,
maybe. Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm sure that they've got other things lined up for me because I said they're sitting there taking notes.
It's also really interesting.
Merlin, somebody write that one down. She needs to make a little book or something.
And this space stuff is really interesting because me and Jenny were kind of on a kick this week talking about like the secret space program and some things that she's had, things that she's seen about what's happening. And so there's a connection there as well. So
and
there's so much going on.
There is some, and I think that's what happens sometimes when we are allowing ourselves to connect, that suddenly you get like snapped up and they're like, but somebody else told me that they were on a peace mission as well. So there's quite a few of us that have been chosen to do a peace. And I think that they're telling me that is something that I've been doing, but I'm only just remembering it. Right. So sometimes we're remembering things that we've been doing for lifetimes, probably.
That makes sense. Because you said you didn't feel any connection to like the war type things with dragons. It's peace and healing.
Healing. Yes. Yeah. And I don't go there. It like doesn't make sense to me. I've talked to a couple of people that they're like, oh yeah, well they don't believe in what I talk about. Like, you know, the Federation, the Galactic Federation and that stuff. They're like, oh no, I don't do any of that stuff. And the Galactic Federation are very peace oriented and, you know, keeping us all safe. So
I've just started kind of diving into that a little bit. We had a guest last week. We talked to a little bit about that, but the secret space, it's like, I've been very interested in like what's gone on in space and talking about like theories of, you know, whether extraterrestrials could be on the moon and like seeding from Mars. But I guess I've just recently kind of gotten to the point where it's like, okay, I'm ready to learn about what's going on kind of with the secret space program stuff and the Galactic Federation. But it's a lot. And you almost have to have a background in a lot of these other different kind of things to be able to put all those puzzle pieces together.
Yeah. But that was another one of my, when I realized that I was channeling Commander Ashtar and the Galactic Federation. I didn't know what that was. And I'm getting all these messages and I'm like, I've never heard of it until I started to then ask people, and they were like, "Oh, you've connected with the Galactic Federation." Oh, yeah, that's right. And they were talking about the Brotherhood of Light and the Sisterhood of Light and all this. And
all that stuff is very well documented over 100 years at least.
Yeah. You know, when you first hear it, you know, and I hadn't really dived into. I mean, literally, I wouldn't have thought. You know, I didn't sit down and go, "Oh, I want to connect with the Galactic Federation." You know, it popped up and it was like, now we're going to get these messages.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
Yeah. And as we discovered, I don't think there's anything weird about it. I just go, oh, yeah, okay. I was talking to
well, you know, Maryland, dragons, Ashtar. Yeah.
I mean, I think at first, when, you know, well, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but, you know, when I first heard about it, even though I'm very open-minded to a lot of things, it's like, okay, like, what are we getting into now? This seems very kind of bombastic. I mean, it just very big, very like, we're not trying to, I mean, it's just everything. It's out there. You know, we're going full tilt boogie on this thing. But the more you think about it, the more it kind of makes sense. And because if you're someone who believes in extraterrestrials, if you're someone who believes that there's been other kind of life forms that have, you know, evolved in the universe, chances are we are not the first. Chances are we're not the second or third. And there's been millions of years for other ETs and whatever you know we think that they are to evolve. And so chances are, I think, you know, just using mathematics, we're probably somewhere in the middle or somewhere, you know. And so there very well easily could be this reality of all kinds of things that exist that we're just completely unaware of because we haven't had the technology to be able to, or at least we haven't been told that there's a technology to be able to go with these things.
Yeah. And I think people feel safer. Like people are not like, oh, I'm not going to talk about that. There's a lot more people that are more willing to share their experiences. I mean, it took me a while. You know, I had got my private Facebook page where I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to go out mainstream. And gradually it sort of bled in and I'm like, oh, yeah. So I got it all, you know, because somebody actually said, well, it sounds like, you know, you're not sure if you're not out there. And I'm like, oh, I'll talk about dragons. I'll talk about any of those things because, you know, and again, I could talk to you for another hour about galactic and connections and, you know, the fact that we've all got some sort of DNA in us. And that was, again, by meeting somebody that connected me to understand that we can meet some of our galactic families as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a whole nother episode.
It does, doesn't it?
We might have to have you back to talk about that.
Yeah.
But it all, in the end, it all sort of comes together and makes sense. But you know, you just have to be patient. Like,
and it's all connected.
It is all connected. Yeah.
I think patience is a good word for that too, because I think when, you know, even someone who is going to listen to the Witching Hours, someone like me who listened to Coast AM and watched all those things I've talked about in search of, and I'm really interested in anything that's kind of different. Sometimes you still kind of have to work your way up a little bit. Sometimes you kind of have to dip your toe in the water a little bit before you can jump off into the deep end. And so that doesn't mean that once you jump off in the deep end, you can't swim, but you know, sometimes you have to kind of get used to the temperature of the water a little bit.
So the interesting thing is, so I actually work for the Department of Mental Health. So I don't often discuss my dragons at work.
Yeah. They might put you on the other side of that.
They'll be like, and you're hearing voices. So you know, there are places that you just, but then I do have a couple of people at work that know what I do as well. And they think that's pretty cool. And they're like, and then they share with me, you know, I think my kids are from, you know, I think they're not from this planet.
Well, you know, it happens so much in the paranormal and supernatural and spiritual world. So many different kinds of guests that we have on. Even when you're just talking about like paranormal investigation and like ghosts and stuff like that. I mean, doctors and nurses see lots of ghosts, and military and police officers see lots of UFOs because they're looking around and they're looking up in the skies. And so, uh, 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 these aren't people with mental disabilities. These aren't people who, they're just people who have an experience. And it's easy, as we always say on here, it's easy to explain away someone else's experience until you start having your own, and then that's when it changes.
Yes, yeah, you're right, because you're like, I mean, and I was a nurse for many years, so I've had, I could write another book on, those experiences, especially when people pass.
Yeah.
And I always saw that again as a privilege to be with people when they transitioned, because people say, "Oh, isn't it depressing?" And I'd say, "No," and they thought that was weird.
Yeah. So there's 2 questions we need to do before we finish for tonight.
Yes.
One is, so we've spent most of the night talking about dragons, and we've very much talked about how they want to help humans, and that most people have them around them, whether they know it or not. So what kinds of things do they want to help us with?
Really, anything that we need help with. They certainly can help with healing. As I said, they're very heart-centered. They're here also to help with the planetary ascension and us personally ascending. And they're really here to, they're showing me wrapping their wings around us to hold us, they just love to be around us and connect.
That makes me feel good, because we're kind of hard to deal with.
Well, we are,
yeah. And I know we don't have a ton of time. We got a little bit of time left. And since you mentioned that was one question I had that I hadn't had a chance to get through tonight, which is talking about the planetary ascension or the shift. There's lots of different. I don't know anybody who is in the woo-woo world who isn't talking about this. I mean, I think it's become like a common thing that everyone understands is happening. What have you heard from the dragons about that?
What they show me is that they are here to help, not just with the Earth ascending, but us personally, because we talk a lot about, we're ascending into the 5th dimension. We're going up. The Earth's going up. I mean, for different people, it means different things. And Merlin's opening the door again, going, "Yeah, it's enough."
Just come on in. We've been waiting for you.
There's another door over here. But I think the dragons see it that we personally need help with that. And they will help us not only lift us up, but help us get rid of, and this goes back to our soul, of like dropping all the things that we no longer need. So they're there to literally pick us up and help us with that physical ascension. They're saying as well, there's a lot of people that don't want to ascend. So there's a lot of us that are ready. We can't wait to do that. But there's a lot of people that are going to stay behind because they want to stay on, the 3D Earth. They don't want any of that. Thank you. And they're like, that's okay.
I think I've been waiting for this for a few 100,000 years. So let's hurry this up.
Yeah, well, I keep saying this is the last time I'm coming back here. I've done with this whole Earth experiment.
Barbara, we all say that, and that's how we talk ourselves into coming back.
Well, yeah, and then you get there, and I always say, what was I thinking when I was like, oh, sign me up for, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do it. It sounds really good until you come and have to do it.
And you really have to do it.
For many years, before even talking about ascension, I used to say, you know what? I think I'm done with it. Keep coming back here. I'm ready to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Yes.
And then CMC wanted to know, what upcoming events do you have for 2025?
Yeah, interesting. So I haven't got any big things. I'm still figuring out getting myself out there more in the physical, because I've been doing a lot of stuff I've got a YouTube channel and doing my weekly stuff. Then there are a couple of things that I'm, there's an event actually out in, and it will be on my website out in, and I don't know why the Dragons have said I need to go out to Western Mass, but East Hampton, there's going to be, it's somebody's, their first time putting on like it's an equinox event, but it's like a 4-hour town hall that the Dragons pointed me to and said, you need to go out there. And I'm like, that's a 2-hour drive. But that will be, once I know that they're still going through a process, and that will be the first time I've sort of done it in person. There's a friend and I've got a couple of friends that are into drag. So I have a friend that channels her artwork and myself, and we've been doing small group like readings. So that we're doing in February. And again, it is on my Facebook page. If anybody's interested, I can actually put it up. And I've also been, the Dragons have also instructed me that I need to do a class on dragon chakras. So I've planned that as well. That's on my Facebook page. They, again, took me through this whole process of meeting my chakra dragons and working with them and clearing them. And a lot of it was around grief. And they said, now you know about it, you need to go and teach it. So that, and I can't remember the dates, but it's on my website. So
right. Excellent.
Awesome.
What kind of stuff are you doing over your YouTube? Did I see you also do a podcast over there?
So yeah, so when so Dragon Thunder was another event that has happened. This will be the 3rd year. So once a year, there's a guy in England that I got connected to who was dabbling in dragons, and it was an international Dragon Thunder, which was bringing humans and dragons together, which was highly successful, and is where I've met a lot of people from the United States and other countries. And then last year I was the host in the here in America, Australia, England, and America. And this year it's it's in July, I think, this year. And it's a 24-hour rolling. It'll start in Australia, go to England, and then come here. And there are 8 live speakers and a lot of recordings. And that's also, the replays are on my website. There's a link to go to them. Lots of people talking about different dragon stuff. And on you, so what the Dragons told me when I first did that event was they were like, there's going to be a lot of people with a lot of questions. You need to have a dragon hour. So I have a guest once a month. And sometimes we talk about dragons and sometimes we don't, but mainly dragons. So they're all on, that's my YouTube channel. And I post my weekly, I call them my weekly update, but it's usually what's been happening, what's new, and whatever messages I get. Each day, most days, I post on my Facebook page. I pull some cards and give a general reading for the day. I've been a bit slacking because my daytime work has kept me busy. But and people like me to just like, and I post all of those on YouTube, so you can catch those.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
That Dragon Thunder event sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, I'll find it and I can send it to you.
That would be great. And that's a virtual event?
It's a virtual event, yeah. And it's like really expanded. So it started off literally, I remember Kevin, who's the guy, so the Dragons came to Kevin and said, you need to find 1,000 humans and the dragons will appear. And he's like, 1,000? I only know like 5 people. Which he did at the time. It was like it was like 5 of us. And he's like, I think we can put on something and people might be interested. And by the time the event actually happened, 1,000 people had signed up for the event. So it was pretty cool.
Build it and they will come, right?
And they will. Yeah. Last year was not as many people, but more people watched the replays. it's an interesting event to host because you're holding energy for 8 hours.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to take a few days off before and a few days afterwards.
Yeah,
I tend to like hold it and then I crash.
Yeah. Take a nap for a couple days.
Yes.
Well, I know we'll probably have some people interested. So yeah, pass that information along to me, and we'll put it in our community, in our Team Weird community and Discord and stuff.
Yeah, and there's a Facebook page that a lot of people have been joining. I just see it ticking up. So, and that's where people post dragon stuff as well. So
awesome.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Barbara, so much for coming and speaking with us tonight. I think we'd love to have you back on. It sounds like there's a lot of things we could still talk about. So,
yes.
As it always goes. So for all of you people who are listening at another time, at another place, thank you so much for joining us this evening, or whenever you were listening to the show. If you would, it would be very helpful if you click the subscription button down below, or left a review wherever you're listening to us, on YouTube, on iHeartRadio, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. Any support you can provide with a follow or review or whatever would be greatly appreciated. Thank you again for joining us, and we will talk to you and see you next time. And for everyone who is still hanging out with us in chat tonight over on Twitch and in YouTube, let us go find somebody to raid over in the Twitch world.
There's a lot of people on.
I saw all kinds of people were
Kiki Cannon's on doing tarot. And so
we have Novia, Kiki Cannon,
Blue Light Oracle.
Blue Light Oracle.
Oh yeah, Novia too. Mm-hmm. 3 different tarot peoples.
Yeah, let's go. Well, we could do Kiki Cannon or Blue Light Oracle. Let's do Blue Light. I think we haven't done Blue Light Oracle in a while, so let's go raid. Yeah. We'll go raid Blue Light Oracle.
Okay.
And that way people, if they want some readings tonight, they can get that.
Sounds good.
Make sure I have that in there correctly. I do want to say is different plans for you tomorrow night, Friday night.
We have our child's drama play tomorrow, so we'll see when the stream starts.
Yeah, maybe a little later.
Hopefully it starts.
Yeah, hopefully it starts.
Just later than normal, probably.
Yeah. Next week, just update everybody for next week. I'm bringing up the thing here. I need to bring up our webpage and go over who we got coming up, because we got some pretty good shows coming up. We got Charlie Raymond's going to be on next week from Bigfoot, Kentucky. Bigfoot. We're going to talk about Bigfoot on next week. And then we're going to have Tarot Mama on the 6th, going into the month of February already. She's going to give her predictions for 2025, and we're going to do some tarot stuff with Tarot Mama. On the 13th of February, we have Preston Dennett coming on, and we're going to talk about UFO sightings and stories of ET contact. And then on February 20th, we're going to have Michael Famelon on to talk about Bigfoot again. He's going to be the
Bigfoot shows.
He's going to be the speaker at the at that festival that Priestess
of Sasquatch Festival.
Yeah, he's the main speaker. So he's going to be talking to us, and we're going to finish up February talking to Guru the Net, who a lot of people around here know as Cosmic Unwind and the Mystic Village. So we're going to be talking to him, and that'll be, man, time is just flying by. Like January's almost over.
Yeah.
I guess that means I need to get my Christmas lights put up. Anyhow,
get to it.
Thank you, everybody. We love you so much. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys later. Go cause some trouble over in Blue Light Oracle stream. Take care, everybody.